All right, so last year we had this conference. I think we were on the other side of the pool last year, and I stood up here to talk about hours of service. And I was, when we planned for the conference, going to talk about hours of service, the changes that have taken place. And last year, the FMCSA had finished their public questions and answers and getting all the feedback, and that was done, that was completed in October. The FMCSA administrator promised a quick analysis and to get the new rules and regulations out as quick as possible. And so by the time we had the conference, that still had not been published. We knew what the plan was, but it was not published. So I stand here today, 1 year later, still the same damn thing. All right, so let's dive to the first screen, which is the hours of service. I'll just quickly cover what the proposed changes are. Again, these are the same ones that we spoke about last year, the same ones that they took questions and answers on a year ago in October, but they remain the same. So the changes, there are 5 major changes, or 5 changes, 3 of which I conclude that are major. Some of them, well, let me just deal. Short haul exemption. So this rule change is for the trucks that are over 26,000 pounds that are short haul. The current rule is that you have 12 hours to go out and back to the same location in order to be exempt and use that exemption. All right, so that's, and the new rule change is to match up that short haul rule with the trucks that are under 26,000, which they can go out 150 air miles and be back at the same location in 14 hours. And so they want to make the trucks over 26,000 to match that, where they can go out 150 air miles and then back within a 14-hour day instead of limited to 12. So that is a huge deal to a lot of you out here. I know there's logging here, there's construction folks that are here. A lot of you use that short haul exemption and beverage delivery. I know there's a couple of folks here from beverage delivery. Those types of applications, the short haul exemption is perfect for and will allow for that couple extra hours of work time. And of course, if you qualify for the exemption, you qualify for an exemption from the ELD as well. So adverse driving conditions is the other one. To me, this is not a major one. It's more of a language, bringing the language up to make sense. There's always been an adverse driving condition 2-hour exemption, but it was a 2-hour exemption for the driving window of 11 hours. So if you met a true adverse driving condition, you could drive 2 more hours past that 11 hours. However, the current language says that if that extra 2 hours that you do interferes with your 14-hour or your 60 or 70-hour rule, you'll be in violation of those. So the new language is to marry up the 14-hour and the 60 or 70-hour rule, whichever one you're under, to be the same as the 11. So you get that 2 extra hours as a work day, 2 extra hours within your 60 or 70 if you end up having to use that adverse driving condition. So to me, that's just more of a clarifying language, because it didn't really make sense to not get a violation for 11 hours of driving, but then I do get a violation if I run over on the 14 hour. Same condition. So 30-minute rest break was a big topic of concern. And again, the current regulation is that the rest break must be taken. Your clock starts once you go on duty, and within that 8 hours being on duty, and you're driving at that 8th hour, you have to have that 30-minute break in there. They're going to adjust the rule so that it is a 30-minute break within 8 consecutive hours of driving only. The clock does not start when you come on duty. And again, it allows much more flexibility. You can take this 30-minute break while you're still on duty. if you've been driving 6 hours and you're stopping for fuel and you go on duty fueling and you spend 30 minutes doing it, that can qualify for your 30-minute rest break under the new proposed regulations. So again, it gives a lot more flexibility. Sleeper berth, again, this is more for long haulers. Currently, the current rule is you can separate your 10 hours off duty into 8 and 2 hour increments. In the old days, before the 8 and 2, team driving, you could drive with the team 5 hours on, 5 hours off, and go all the way across the country without ever having to stop the truck except for gas, diesel. But on the 8 and 2 kind of put an end to that, and there was a need for more flexibility, so the FMCSA is looking at having different combinations of 3 and 7 and 6 and 4, different combinations of the sleeper berth. So where if you're in the long haul that can take advantage of the sleeper berth rule, that is supposed to give you some more flexibility. But I don't see a lot of folks using the sleeper berth. I mean, it does have its place, but it can be complex. Again, the ELD systems, I think most of them can accomplish the sleeper berth rule. And then the last one, which is another big one in my mind, was actually brought out by OIDA. It's allowing for up to 3 hours off duty that would extend the 14-hour day. So those that are stuck at a shipper or a receiver and not being unloaded, and you can extend your day or it had to be on duty, off duty, and that can extend your day up to 3 hours. So that one was a surprise to me. I didn't think that one would get through just because it wasn't the FMCSA's idea, but surprisingly they adopted it, and it is among the new proposed rule changes. So now it is just a matter of when are they going to do it so that we can take advantage of these things. So we're still at the proposal stage and waiting for the FMCSA, actually the Office of Budget Management, to kick the rule back out to the FMCSA so they can make it final within the registration, Federal Register. That's where it goes next. All right, so when will we know? A year ago, I thought I knew. I have heard, what I've read is that it's fully expected to be come out of the Office of Budget and Management in 2020. I think Luke put this slide together, and you read something likely in the fall of 2020. I think I'm going to give up trying to guess when the FMCSA is going to do anything. All right, so next, let's just get into some other quick hits of regulations that are happening, things that are happening right now. A lot of these we're going to have speakers on to get more in depth. I'm just going to very high level, so maybe get you thinking. If you got questions, so when the speaker comes up, you can definitely be asking those types of questions. So the big regulation changes that are going on right now, again, this was first adopted by rule several years ago, and it's taken them this long to get to the random drug and alcohol, the clearinghouse rule. Registration needs to be happening now. If you're going to hire a driver, you need to be registered now. If you're not in the mode of hiring anybody, then you don't really need to be registered until you get to hire a driver. But again, I got Lucas Shaw from Clean Fleet. He's going to talk about this in depth, so I don't want to spend a great deal of time. But I can tell you that at our collection sites that we manage here in Portland, we see drivers showing up for random but pre-employment drug tests every day that are not, the company that they're hiring for is not registered. The procedure that is in place now that you would be in violation if you don't do, that driver needs to give a electronic permission to the company to do a full query at pre-employment. And if that is not happening, it's in violation. So FMCSA, the first week that it was out, January 6th is when it came out officially. The first week they have all kinds of problems, and they said, well, you can stick with the old way while we're having technical problems, but we'll tell you when you have to comply. And so that lasted about a week and a half, and they came out and said, you now have to comply because they fixed their bugs in their system. So again, we've got Lucas Shaw, that is has been living and breathing clearinghouse since October. Random drug testing rates, again, hopefully you all know that they went up to 50% of your drug testing pool has to be tested in 2020. The last 3 years, it's been at 25%, but the FMCSA changed it. It's now 50% of your pool. So if you have your own internal drug and alcohol testing program or use another TPA third party, make sure that they are up to speed on the FMCSA DOT drug testing rules. At 25% of the pool this year, which means the randoms that they pull usually for first quarter that should be happening right now needs to be aimed at accomplishing 50% by year end. All right, so I can actually read that one. Other quick hits, ELD, obviously ELD is in full compliance as of December. They had the AOBRDs were grandfathered in until December of 19, but now everybody needs to be moved over to ELDs. And the other thing to note with ELDs within the state of Oregon, Oregon is the last state not to adopt ELD compliance for intra-state operations. They had lots of feedback from the logging industry mostly about, so they allowed intra-state they did not adopt that part of the rules when they adopted the federal rules. Oregon, by the way, adopts the federal rules every year. So every year they go through this legislative process of adopting the rules, and they will exclude parts of it that they don't agree with. And to this point, they have not agreed with the ELD mandate just because of the complexity. But this year, with the expectation of the proposed hours of service rule changes, which seem to be the sticking points with a lot of the criticism of ELDs, wasn't really so much on the ELD, but it was more about the hours of service and their lack of flexibility. They are going to, this year when they adopt the federal rules, adopt the ELD mandate as well. So Oregon will be adopting the ELD mandate. If you don't qualify for an exemption, then you will be having to have an ELD in Oregon for intrastate. Other CSA, we talked about that last year. They're starting to test that. CSA is the record keeping, your safety score that the FMCSA tabulates every roadside stop, every through the way stations. They're gathering all of that data and they publish all of that under CSA. Congress found that their methodology was lacking to be able to determine. I think their goal was to be able to predict companies who were most likely to have a crash and then go out and investigate them. And, they found people, the research found trucking companies with very, very poor safety records that would be targeted, but they had no crashes. And so the methodology that they were using was considered faulty, and they were mandated to change that methodology, something item response theory. It's some sort of new type of algorithm that is going to predict more of safety culture. What's the safety culture in your organization, in your business, rather than predicting crashes? So it's supposed to change. It's supposed to change this year. Have we found out what all the details are and how they're going to do it? Not word one. So it could be nothing. It could be, depending on how they implement it, something very intrusive. But CSA has been around. It is just going to be updated this year. So again, Warren Simpson will be here. If you have CSA questions, I doubt he'll be able to tell you much because I don't think, I think it's being closely held in the Virginia offices. 5 minutes? All right, let's keep going. Entry-level driver training. Up until 2 days ago, it was supposed to be implemented next week. This is entry-level. This would be drivers in school to get their CDL. That there's new curriculum requirements, how many hours of this and that you're supposed to take. The enforcement was postponed for 2 years because part of the enforcement is a registry, a database that the FMCSA is supposed to build to hold who are the registered providers of this training. And of course, 2 years is what they need to build this database. So they postponed the enforcement, got enough feedback where now they just postponed the whole darn thing as of 2 days ago. So if you're worried about the entry-level driver training rules, you've got your own school going on out there, it's been postponed. Next, insurance is really not a regulation thing, but insurance rates are skyrocketing. I just read an article yesterday about Landstar. They didn't meet their annual earnings because of, stated in the article, because of the high cost of insurance claims that they've had to pay out. And there's lots of what they call nuclear verdicts happening, really affecting the bottom lines of trucking. There are attorneys out there that specifically stop chasing ambulances, they're chasing trucks. And so insurance is a major deal. You need to be part of your, obviously your budgeting, but in thinking how to keep your insurance rates down. Luckily, we have Skip Nash that's going to be here later. What he does today in his part-time retirement is he helps companies with litigation, expert witness. He knows some of the things that you can put in place to bulletproof as much as you can from these attorneys. So he'll be speaking later on today. So Oregon, quick hits, what's happening within Oregon. And again, we're live streaming this, and there's people all across the country. So, but we know a lot about the state of Oregon because that's where we're based. Oregon, the DOT is restructuring. It's more of a management type of restructuring. So this afternoon, we've got Amy Ramsdell, the director of what used to be Motor Carrier Services. Will be here to talk about the restructuring, how the DOT within Oregon is changing. Surprise, surprise, in January 1st, so we're a month in already, the weight mile tax rate changed. It's part of the law that was passed a couple of years ago where there's every 2 years there's going to be an increase until 2027, something like that. Well, this you haven't reported your January miles report isn't due until the end of February. So, but your January weight mile tax report to Oregon is going to be at a higher tax rate. So we need to be up on that. Let's see, record keeping rules. For those of you that report, get your data to report weight mile through a GPS type system, where the data is electronic. Oregon is adopting some new record keeping rules, which are I believe a good thing, that the record keeping rules defines in much better detail of what type of GPS records that you need to have. And because there's so many ELD providers out there that say that, that we can provide the data for weight mile, and yet they only ping once an hour, for example. And that's not good enough for Oregon. So Oregon says in their new record keeping rule that's going into effect that the ELDs or your GPS must ping at least every 15 minutes and at every significant event. And a significant event is defined as engine on, engine off, or going across the state line. So it must capture that information. So, I think most ELD providers, I know Geotab, eRoad, those that are here more than meet that. They ping much more frequently than every 15 minutes, and has all of that data available. So the reputable companies out there already do it. And I think the other significant thing was that it's a lat and a long. Latitude, longitude is the data that describes location, and it's a universally known in every language that what a lat long is, and you can plug it in, but it must be precise out to the 5th decimal place, which means it's precise enough within about 3 feet. Because there's some lat longs a GPS system could say and only go out to 2 decimal places. Well, that precision puts you within 10 miles of where you're actually at, and that's not good enough for a weight mile audit. So it's got to be out to the 6th or 5th decimal place. And I think, again, most of the reputable ELD providers are probably going out to 6 decimal places already. So, again, more than meets the requirement. So the new record-keeping rules will, again, Audrey Lawson from the ODOT will be here can help explain that, as well as the miles, weight mile tax. Is there something else for Oregon? Did I get through all that list? I think I mentioned the ELD mandates. All right, so finally, last, Washington, state of Washington. Mike Southards from the Washington Trucking Association was going to be here. He might be live streaming in, but the Washington Trucking Association is knee-deep in their legislative process. Just a couple of quick hits from what's being proposed today and being heard in arguments for proposed rules. Greenhouse gas emissions, surprise, surprise. Hiring when legal marijuana use, they're going to put, if somebody, they want to put in some rules that say you cannot not hire somebody because they use marijuana legally. Obviously, that flies in the face of the federal regulations and DOT, but, so trucking would probably be exempt, but if you hire staff, you're Washington-based, and you hire staff, that can affect, you cannot have a rule that says, well, if you test positive for marijuana, we can't hire you. So they're trying to get that going. They're actually, the WTA, backed a bill to have them test triple trailers in the state of Washington. So it's usually an uphill battle for them to try to do anything with triples up there, but we'll see how far that goes. So there's many, many other things that they're tackling, but those, as far as for trucking, are the ones.